They're all within a year for sure. Well, all right then.
You mean business?
We'd like to call a meeting to order. This is a continuation of this morning's workshop. And we had done two of the items on the chart, correct?
Yes.
And now, let's move on to the next one.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chair. We are on item number 11, and just as a broad overview of this one actually came out of the county manager's office. It is an addenda that reduces the levy by $260,000 each year. Currently, the county, has a performance pay salary plan. It's called the 727. Those are all the employees that receive some sort of a performance pay. We have 265 positions that would encompass primarily senior leadership, as well as a lot of our IT staff are in that salary plan. Within that salary plan are also employees who are also in our elected offices, including the county attorney's office and the sheriff's office as well, because they're all in the same plan. And so the proposal is for that group of employees, and I am not personally on that salary plan. I have an annual contract with all of you, as you know. But it would be for the 265 positions in addition to the county manager taking a 2-day furlough each of the years of the biennium. So it'd be the savings would be 260 each year. So happy to discuss with you all. Potentially the second year might be a different cost, right? If there's like been wage increases.
Minor.
Yeah, minor, it would be minor. So happy to take any questions or thoughts or
Any questions?
So again, this is like for high level.
yeah, these would be the
senior
highest
level.
paid employees in the county. All these employees are unrepresented. They would remain eligible for their step increases. Also, they would stay eligible for their performance-based pay, which is why they're in this plan, because they get that, and they also would be eligible for their general wage increase, which happens on January 1st of each year as well. So,
And what they would not get.
they would be reduced from getting 2 days of pay, but they would get 2 days off. We would just handle it like people manage their vacation, working with their supervisors or managers to, pick 2 days a year that they wanna take off, and they would code it differently and wouldn't get paid. So essentially, you'd have a paycheck that you're only getting paid for, the, 9 days or 8 days. Yeah, you'd be giving up 16 hours each year of as unpaid.
Kelly? Take that.
Uh,
Nice, Sean.
What is their current paid PTO or time days off, and is it like they're at their max PTO that they can earn or that they give, or how does that work for us? Like, I know in the nonprofit sector, it was different, like senior leadership level got like 28 days of PTO a year plus holidays. Like, are we similar? And the other employees who started coming in, like, earned their way up to whatever their max was?
They get the same day of holidays as every other employee. Answering the easy ones first. In terms of, the county doesn't have PTO, we have vacation, like I said. In terms of vacation, it is based on number of years of experience, so likely, while there's not a set number, I would assume that the majority of the people at this level are getting the highest level of vacation, probably 4 weeks a year, some of them 5 weeks a year, I would guess.
And it's on
Is that kind of those- those are
experience,
the top ends?
not seniority or length of employment. Does that make sense?
Go ahead. Mr. Chair, Commissioners, they say experience because it doesn't have to be in Ramsey County, right? So if
Okay.
you have, like, I have 10 years of the state of Minnesota
Right.
plus the years of service I have here,
Okay.
then it's based on that, the
Okay.
number of years of experience.
Okay, thank you.
Go ahead.
And each individual would be different.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Did you say that this also impacts the county attorney's office and the sheriff's office, their employees, or just the county
county attorney and the sheriff.
No, not the elected,
Yeah, okay,
positions, but they're employees because they're all Ramsey County employees and they're all part of the same salary
Oh,
plan.
okay, so if they're in that salary range for all the county, they're affected. About how many are in the county attorney's office and how many are in the sheriff's office? Just like,
Alex can try
like
to look that
20,
up,
30,
probably more than that.
no, not like 100, I mean, 20 or 30 aren't.
And I'll just be honest, this is a difficult cut, not for a significant amount of money. But I do feel like, part of my job is to give you objective, cuts that have different impacts across varying, spheres. As you know, with our first round of budgets, we had some service reductions. We, shut down Shoreview Library on Fridays. We had the detox closure with significant staff reductions. We also had a couple we had a cut in finance. We shut down enterprise services. So I mean, we had to do some hard things. We're cutting, as we go through this list, none of these things are easy.
Right.
I feel that there's a part of this is a unity factor of the pain that everyone has to go through as part of being in this organization. But it's one of many options. I'm not saying it's the best cut, but I needed to give you a variety to consider. And Hennepin County did do something very similar, though they had a voluntary method of doing it that was, kind of assumed you would. It's kind of from what I understood on their directors this past year. So.
Mr. Chair, Commissioners, it appears there's 19 county attorney office positions and 10 in the sheriff's. Sorry, there are 19 county attorney office positions and 10 in the sheriff's.
29.
And really, most of everything, the remaining round of these reductions, we were trying not to reduce any full FTEs.
Right,
So this is spreading, some of the pain across multiple people.
Okay, I have my Sean, then Garrison.
My question about the furlough was, does it make a difference if they take, a vacation instead?
Well, when people take vacation, we pay them for their time. This is taking 8 hours unpaid.
So we don't have like a separate account for like vacation time, vacation and benefits time.
Mr. Chair, Commissioners, we do not. So as part of your salary, that is assumed you'll take vacation and sick leave. So this would be unpaid days, so it's actually reduce your compensation in a year.
Okay. Thank you.
Garrison.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. With the 260,000, how much of an impact would that have on the levy? At least how much you all have brought it down? If we were to, let's say, pause on this and think more of a comprehensive approach that includes not only the sheriff's office and the county attorney's office, but also maybe discuss, as a board, potential cuts that we would need to make as well. If we were to remove that, how much would that impact drastically how much you have been able to bring down the current levy?
Yeah, I would say, all the little things add up to a big number. It is not a huge number in and of itself. As we told you, it takes about $4 million to pull down 1% on the levy. So, fairly minimal impact. However, like I said, I'm not necessarily advocating for it, but I do think that it is a good objective thing for you to think about as we balance a lot of things and show some solidarity with our community partners and with other staff and other impacts if not now, for future consideration.
And I know, and I appreciate that, and I agree with you. I think that we need to have serious conversation as a body, but not only focus on these 265, but like us as a board as well of what we're going to have to potentially sacrifice as we think about the coming years and how the situation that we're currently in is not going to get any better. And I'm thinking about just already the work that you all are doing and heading into next year of the reorganization of us continuing to be living in crisis likely, and the amount of work that we already have on our staff, especially in these positions. And so to ask for this and not think more broadly and more comprehensively of what all of us can be doing, that gives me pause, and so I just wanted to name that and then, of course, open the floor for your colleagues' thoughts on that.
Mr. Chair, Commissioners, I just want to share that the average daily rate for someone in this is about $500, so it'd be $1,000 reduction to someone's pay, less taxes, so it's not exactly that. The average wage for a year for this level of employees, about $120,000 a year, 125.
Aisha?
County Manager Becker, I really appreciate the thought, into this too. I just following what the conversation is on that, instead of like focusing on just these positions. May there be considerations, or have there been considerations about decreasing professional services, right? Rather than, these positions. So just doing that cutoff of professional services by that 5%, or that exercise across the entire organization.
Yeah, I mean, we can certainly look into that. Again, I'll just reiterate, like, I'm trying to just show you pulling every lever at all parts of the organization. I still get the pretty significant notices as part of when I was the workforce director. I think I'm still on the mailing list. There are significant layoffs happening all around the Twin Cities. Reality is organizations, companies, nonprofits, people are having to make hard choices. And so I just need you, as I'm being the best county manager as I can be, to ensure that you have at least all the options available to you of things that, make a difference. And as I said, individually, a lot of these don't seem like a lot. We're gonna end up talking about things that are 25,000 and 100,000. But when you add them all up, they add up pretty quickly. And we have to just weigh our charge of doing our business and supporting our staff and all the things that we have to do with the property tax pressure. And that's really what we're balancing,
And then
So-
my other question, as a follow-up is, for the departments exercising that 5%, trim. Have we, asked that of the county attorney's office or the sheriff's office?
Did they do that? I do not believe they did that exercise.
I don't think so.
But their employees are getting this cut. Sheriff's office,
Right.
yeah,
right.
not the actual county attorney.
Well,
Their
yeah.
businesses are getting this cut.
Well, I think they were part of, they were part of the meetings where we talked about it, right? I mean, did they fill out a
So,
form? Yeah.
Mr. Chair, Commissioners, when the budget instructions are put out and we ask for 5% reduction, everyone is allowed to do those. And I cannot compel the sheriff's office or the county attorney's office to submit that. And I have to double check. I know
Maybe
the sheriff's
the county
office did
attorney
not,
did do
but
it.
I'm not sure about the
Yeah.
county attorneys. I can
Right.
go,
Okay.
no.
The county attorney's office might have done.
Finally, I just want to say that, I think their offices may be, positioned well to look for those additional savings themselves too. So I would look forward to any of those proposals.
Okay.
I have Kelly Doreen.
How many of these are all of these positions levy funded then? None of them are funded from outside sources of grant dollars or other funding sources? It's all levy?
I would say there's very few, if any.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, Commissioners, that's an excellent question. How that usually works at that level, none of those people will be fully grant funded. You may get, like we talked about earlier, like a 10% administrative fee. We may be charging portions of to the grants, which then based on total salary, you might decrease slightly, but the vast majority, this is a conservative number. It would likely be higher than this because it's based on 2025 salaries and there's increases in both 26 and 27.
And then just a quick follow-up, do we have breakdown by how much cost savings per department this would be? So, reviewing our county attorney's letter, he just sent us, he has it broken down by his office. Curious if we have it broken down by the sheriff's office and then by the other.
Mr. Chair, Commissioners, I could do that. I don't have that broken down by tier today.
Okay,
And, but I could absolutely do that for you. There's generally small amounts of money.
Okay.
It's gonna be small. We have 27 departments. You're
Yeah.
dividing 260 by 27.
thank you.
Vina and then Carol.
I think some of my questions were with Commissioner Miller. This is difficult, you know, 120K is not a whole lot, when you say top level, it's not like a whole lot of money, but I also hear the fact that we are laying people off, we had to make some really hard decisions in different departments. Could you get like maybe a breakdown too of like the high levels, how many is making more than 150K a year, something like that, or how many is under 50K, how many is over 150K? I mean, this is nickel and diming it, but, have we, you know, I know Hennepin County did a similar thing with, their staff over there. Do we have any like feedback from them or something that we can look to and say, you know, it had an impact, it's making I don't know, this is tough, did it make a difference or something that we could look to?
I'm
I don't know.
kind of to that point,
To
really.
this point,
Yes.
Mhm.
Do we know how many from Hennepin were voluntary and who, like, what would that look like if we had a more voluntarily number of who within our structure? Because if you said Hennepin was more a voluntary program rather than this is what we're doing, giving them no option, what would that look like for us? Like, would it be 200 positions that are willing to voluntarily take this rather than the full 265?
So our difference with Hennepin County is we do not have anything that addresses this type of concept in our labor agreements. They do have something called a special leave without pay program. At least I believe in some of their contracts. From what I received from the previous county administrator, it was voluntary. It allowed the county to keep positions intact, save property tax dollars, and delay service cuts and reductions. They estimated that if all, and you know, we're not the scale of Hennepin County, but this is how they were thinking it through. We've estimated that if all Hennepin County employees took 8 hours of special leave without pay in 2025, the county would save $2.6 million. They did say assistant county administrators and all department directors have been asked to take 24 hours of unpaid leave this year. So that's what they chose to do. They made it voluntary for the rest of the organization, but he had his department directors and assistant county administrators take 24 hours.
Mr. Chair, Commissioners, the county attorney's office did submit a 5.
Yeah, I thought so. But it's completely fine if you're not comfortable with this and want us to do other research for a future budget year. I just wanted to throw it on the table as something when we hear other counties trying different strategies to reduce pressure. I'm not gonna not bring it forward for you to have at least a conversation, so.
I like that, Glee.
Yeah,
Carol first.
I just want to thank, the county manager and the leadership who, you know, were kind of voluntold this might be on the docket, so to speak. You know, in a normal time where we as a county or an entity or an enterprise were facing a budget crunch, I could see that the obvious place would be to say, how do we have this kind of a pain point come from those who are highly compensated, who probably would be able to weather the storm. But given this particular time when we are asking you all to come over and over and over again to reiterate the work of the enterprise to put out one fire after the other while we're strategizing one new executive order after another. I feel like this feels like the mandates we're getting, which is twice the work and half the pay. And I know it's only 2 days, but there is a sense of burnout and morale. So I have a little pause on that. Unless we as electeds, and I mean that across the board between the county attorney, the sheriff's office, and ourselves as a board, we're willing to take that leap with you. And so I would say I would very much like to looking at, we all received some thoughts from our county attorney's office with some pause over this and wanting us to be a little more thoughtful on that. I haven't had a chance to engage with our sheriff's office around this, but what I would feel most comfortable with is putting a pause on this, knowing that the worst is yet to come in the next couple of years. We're going to be facing waves of constraint on our budgets. And that we actually consider this more comprehensively. So that if we were to do this, it would be a bigger bite, meaning we'd be able to figure out like, things like our professional development for leadership staff, our travel, you know, and the idea is, do we collectively look at us as a board of directors and other leadership to say, while we benefit tremendously from the advocacy and education and networking that we get on, like our conferences and travel budgets, that is, you know, 2 staff versus 4 that are going, and adding that up as well. So I guess it's not to say that I don't think this is a good idea. I almost think it's not as comprehensive as it could be. And I think if we are a little bit more mindful, engage our other electeds to make sure that they are feeling on board in solidarity, we can collectively maybe even take a bigger bite in 2027. Bigger bite meaning in ways that are more comprehensive, and not so specifically on the backs of our leadership.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
And I would agree, you know, looking at, we have just gotten to a place where we have invested in employees, you know, because we have been truly living underpaid, you know, well, not underpaid, but and this could be that big hit. So I really do think that we should just pause and wait a little bit and think this through a little bit more, what that can look like, or other places we can find those dollars.
Anybody else? Okay, so we're gonna put a pause on this item.
Yeah.
And we need to, put it on our list to come back to during the year.
Okay. Item number 12, we currently, have, investment into an organization called Greater MSP. Greater MSP is funded by a public-private partnership, and I know Commissioner McMurtry serves on the board. Their job is really to promote, economic development for the entire, metro region. Different counties and public governments, pay into, Greater MSP through an investment. Our investment currently is $50,000, and, I'm proposing to reduce it by 25. In your proposal, it talks a lot about the buildup of work that we do through our Community Economic Development Department and our Workforce Solutions Department, really, which are the aligned areas of the work that Greater MSP does help advance. So it's still another difficult decision to reduce funding for a community partner.
But also, this is a line item that other counties around us have cut, way before this. So, go ahead.
Do we know, what our contribution to Greater MSP is compared to the other counties in the 7-county metro?
Yeah, we do have that. Let me see if I can find this sheet here. Okay, so Hennepin County and Carver County do not currently invest in Greater MSP. In their 2026 budgets, Dakota County is providing $100,000 to Greater MSP, but it's through their Community Development Agency funds, their CDA funds. Anoka County currently has $70,000 in their budget, but they're still working through their budget, from what I understand from the administrator. The last I heard, at least last year, the city of St. Paul is the only municipality in Ramsey County that invested directly into Greater MSP. I am not sure if it is in their current budget. And I believe the St. Paul Port Authority also invests in Greater MSP.
Gotcha. No, I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I've had a chance to talk to Peter Frost with Greater MSP about this, and I'm torn because I completely understand the predicament that we're in, that we would have to make a tough decision like this. At the same time, I also want to make sure that we are investing in those areas that could potentially help us in the longer term of things. And knowing that Greater MSP is doing work around, you know, highlighting this region as a place for businesses and for different industries to come. And as we think about how we can diversify our revenue stream and you know, expand our tax base, I do consider them a part of that work, and I want to make sure that we remain a partner with them in this work. This, of course, doesn't change like the level. As long as I'm sitting on the board, it's not going to change my level of commitment and how I plan to work with them. But I just want to call out, my only concern is if this sends a signal to, you know, as they're out advocating for this region, if this sends a signal to folks that we're not as, deeply invested in the work that they are doing compared to some of the other counties in the metro area. But yeah, that's.
Well, didn't you just say that Hennepin does not pay anything? And, Dakota,
They do through their CDA, but, Carver does not.
Carver does not. How about
And,
Dakota?
yeah, Carver does, but through their community development agency, so they have some different funds they can pull. And then, I don't know, Carrie, if you feel like there's any thoughts you wanna add?
And what's the value, while you're talking, what's the value of this investment to the investment?
Let's see, how much time we got? Great question. I think Commissioner McMurtry, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think what you're describing is potential. And I do think that it's important to have a seat at the table for what a partnership could look like.
It could.
The partnership that I think we've been investing in for year after year after year, because it used to be over $100,000. And then we heard that our partners across the river reduced theirs by like a quarter. And we went, oh yeah, we're failing to see the value here as well. So then we reduced it at that time. And then we reduced it further. And I think it's hard for a fully built out county such as Ramsey County to necessarily achieve the wins that Greater MSP is going for, because it's predominantly greenfield development. And so for the Anoka counties, for the Carver, Washington, et cetera, they have that opportunity in a way that they should definitely be potentially investing. But I do see that there's so much potential, and I will also say that the county manager and Joanna and I and other leaders across the organization have been at the table to describe what that potential partnership could look like for years. And it always sounds good in the moment, but it doesn't necessarily translate to tangible results. So I would just say, I don't think necessarily a reduction would signal that we're not invested. I think it would signal that we have concerns about what the current partnership looks like under circumstances of a really tight budget. And I think then we can have a far more focused conversation about, we will ramp up our investment when we see a return on investment.
I agree with that.
And
No,
Yeah.
and per your request, they are coming early next year for a board
Yep.
conversation, so
Yep.
timing is opportune there.
No, I appreciate that, and I completely agree that this reduction does not remove me from the table, does not remove us
Yeah.
from the conversation. There is a lot of potential there, and I'm looking at, especially next year, and I've shared this with Peter and with their team, like, this is an opportunity for us to reset, for them to come in, to hear of our priorities, our expectations, to also get a sense of what they're working on and how we can be a better partner. But over the last, many years, we have not seen that return on investment. And I actually had a chance to go and speak to their team a couple of weeks ago at their all staff meeting. And one of the staffers asked, like, what does success look like between Greater MSP and Ramsey County? And to be blunt, like, we want to see projects. We want to see we're investing in the work that you all are doing. We'd like to see that brought to Ramsey County. So I think that conversation is happening, and I think next year presents an opportunity for them to kind of better show us how they're gonna meet us halfway, essentially.
Yeah. So what I heard is that we've been having that conversation for years. I would be okay with giving them nothing at all. And move on, because no investment in us, I mean, why do we continue to give that type of leverage to someone who has disregarded us? They have not seen us in our needs. And so for me, I definitely support 25 reduction by 25K, but I will support giving them absolutely nothing. And then let them make some decisions about what a partnership really looks like.
Just,
No, you're right.
I want,
I know you
then
got
I want you to,
Yeah.
well,
Go ahead, Garrison, then manager.
No, I was just gonna say, I completely understand that sentiment. I get it. I would not support going down to zero. I still do wanna make sure that they understand, that we are a partner in this work, and we want to remain at the table. And my understanding, if they were to reduce it at zero, would that remove me as a board member? Okay, just wanted to.
And you can still get the table, make that case for them.
So,
Absolutely.
so here's the compromise, okay? We're gonna go down to 25 this year. And after our meeting with Peter, if we don't see tangible results, they're getting zero next budget.
Yeah,
Let's go.
I actually, I would definitely support looking at that, for sure. I wanna keep us at the table, and I think Hennepin's still at the table and they're at zero, so, right?
So we still
And
got
they-
to
I don't, they,
They,
I don't know.
they don't give anything, didn't they zero themselves? I thought I agreed that they zeroed themselves out.
You know,
But I have another question, not on that.
okay, but wait,
Yeah.
let's not make that the criteria, because let me tell you something. You already have the majority of metro area not contributing. Greater MSP needs to rethink a lot of things here. You can't, I mean, they are greater MSP. It is the metro area, and they got their counties not playing because we're not getting results. I'll be honest with you, I moved to get out of greater MSP about 5 years ago because we weren't getting any results. But we'll move on from
Yeah.
here.
Well, I'm super glad that you're there, Commissioner McMurtry, and, want us to stay involved. I think it's good to stay on the table that, hey, if we don't see anything, or I'm glad they're coming to our board meeting. I was just trying to remember if they're a partner with us on our River's Edge, because they
Love
would,
it,
well, they should be, because this is regional development, that should be their number one priority. is our River's Edge.
They have River's Edge on their paperwork. They
Yeah, I
got a
mean,
million
if they don't
projects
put
on the
River's Edge
paper.
on,
None
I'm
of them have.
zeroing them out for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, they should totally have our projects on there.
That's the problem, they should, and they don't, that's the problem.
Go ahead.
I would also suggest that in this kind of review of next year, how it goes, that we also coordinate with our partners who are contributing, St. Paul and the Port Authority, and the Port Authority they pay a very small amount, but, that we're coordinating as a region, our investment
Yeah.
into an economic development corporation that I'll say they do a very good job of supporting us at the groundbreakings. But we need them on the front end.
Well, you know,
But I'll just say, we need to define partnership over this next year.
and we will, and we will. It's
Yeah.
not like, my frustration comes. We had a criteria when we first joined. We gave them 4 or 5 years to produce, and they did it. Okay? Give us something, and they did it. The board was reluctant. I don't know why we are reluctant to call things as they are. If we're not getting results, we should be result oriented. We're not getting results from anything, then let's sit down and talk how we get those results. Otherwise, why are we spending all the time at the same table getting no results? That's the point.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I don't mean to belabor the point too, but, just taking it above greater MSP, I think that is the analysis that we all have to make about associations that we're a part of, where they are actively against like what Ramsey County stands for. And also other organizations as well, about whether, the test for us is about, county responsible services. And 2, are they aligning, the policies that we're trying to advance?
Great point, very great point.
Thank you very much. I'm gonna have Deputy Manager Francois come up for, the residents first, but I'd like to talk about 13 and 14 sort of collectively, and then you can ask questions about them individually, because they're very similar. And I think, other DCMs might have feedback too, because a lot of times our strategic priority money, the DCMs have been the sponsors of those projects and work. So each year in the budget, we set aside basically unassigned funding around our strategic priorities. We have $1 million So I already took 500,000 from the strategic priority line number 14 when I built the first round of the budget, if that makes sense. So you're seeing the remainder of the 500,000. We also set aside $1 million of just specific to residents first. So though both of those are very similar in the sense that they're flexible dollars that are put in the budget. Generally, there's some years where there's projects that go from year to year, but a lot of times it creates a nimbleness for the organization to advance things that are innovative and are aligned with our strategic priorities and sort of work through departments and come through DCM executive sponsorship. So it's important for you to know that these are big dollars. They take a big hit on that. They're gonna bring down the levy quite a bit because as I told you, this collectively, they're $1.5 million on these two line items versus some of the ones we've been talking about that are like 50,000, 25,000. There's not necessarily work assigned to these dollars as of yet, but it doesn't mean there's not a trade-off. Like there is things that I'm sure we could advance if we had these funds. Like today, when we did the food investment, that came out of the resident first strategic priority. When we did the AHOD work and needed some flexible dollars, and I was able to work at the time with Deputy Prime Manager Collins and Francois, that's where we kind of went. So it's a more flexible place that the county manager and leaders can go that doesn't have us, immediately dipping into the contingency fund or going right to the general fund balance for things that, really are aligned with the priorities and the work that we do. Now, I will say, I'd like to believe that every part of our almost $1 billion budget advances strategic priorities. And so I'd like to kind of reorientate the organization to believe that the work you do and align that work collectively on all the dollars, all the staff really moves those things. And it's not just a couple of $1 million a year that we put in the budget. So with that, I'm sure Karen and other DCMs could answer some questions. They're the ones who've operationalized this money over. I don't know when this started, like you guys have some history. When would the
Yes.
strategic priority money have been started?
Well, it basically started in 2017.
Okay,
The funding, let's say the program itself started in 2017. I think when Deputy County Manager Berg started IPR modernization work. And then when County Manager O'Connor came on board, he made specific investments, and that was about 2018 into the Residents First program.
Can you talk a little bit more about the resident first programs and why, at this point, we don't need this type of direct allocation into it?
Well, yes, I can speak to that. Commissioner, I think, the fact that we might not need it might not be the case. I think if we had the money, it would be certainly used very well to advance centering the resident in all of the work that we do. Now, that's not going to change. I think every department represented here, every service team represented here centers residents in all of the decisions that we make and all of the work that we do. Residents First is a mindset. It's not just a program. And so over the years, the Residents First funding has funded approximately 26 initiatives. And we've spent approximately $19 million over since 2017 on Residents First programming. I have an entire list here of all of the things that we've done, but some of the major programs have been service center redesign and renovation, especially in the downtown service center and Maplewood. FAS case management, we have a program that we funded that is still in progress, and that is the Human Services Modernization Program. But many programs over the years that have funded programs that centered residents. And if this funding were to go away, I think we would absolutely still have the residents first mindset, there might not be some things that we would be able to do that we would have done with that funding. County Manager Becker has talked about, how we were able to use the funding for AHOD, which was a big initiative that has very much advanced the work that we do to serve residents.
So what I think I'm hearing is that you're feeling comfortable that residents are a priority for Ramsey County. It is embedded in everything that we do. And there's no need to have this money set aside for that because it is embedded already in the work that we do.
Yeah, I don't think I would say that there's no need for
okay.
the funding. Yes, the mindset is there.
Mhm,
I think you could probably poll everybody in this room
mhm.
and they would say that as they do their work on a
It's
daily
embedded.
basis, they're putting the resident first.
Mhm. Okay, and that's what I meant.
Yes,
Right, that it is embedded.
it is.
It's how it's the practice that we have.
Yes.
Ms. Jo?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm just gonna, because I was here for all of that. That I think it was, an effort to have resources available to do those things that he said, well, it's to make improvements while you're flying the plane. While we're doing all this work, we know we can do it better. We know we can do it differently. We know we can embed residents in a better, different, more comprehensive way. We just can't get there. We don't have the resources to get to those changes because we're so busy doing everything over here. So the way I look at it, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, it really allowed us to be innovative and creative
Yes.
and really do some different things that we might not have had resources before. So it's hard for me to see this, and I mean, I know we'll continue to do the work, but I have to support these things because we're making really tough decisions. But I do worry that we aren't gonna be, at a time of crisis. I like to quote CFO Kutza a lot, like never waste a good crisis. I mean, we need to, now's the time to be creative. Now's the time to relook at everything, relook at our systems, relook at how we're doing things. We can't be just, okay, now we just gotta stop doing all these things over here because we only can focus on this. I think we totally need to be looking at different ways to do things. And some of these dollars, I think, was helping do that. So that's sort of my question is, we just can't afford to not do things differently. So I'm a little nervous and just maybe help me with that. Like, yes, we can keep doing everything the way we're doing it, but that's not what I want. I want us to think differently. So if it shows that it could be better. So I'm in a dilemma, but I totally get that we have to make tough decisions.
I'm not in a dilemma. I
Yeah.
can support this effort.
Yeah,
Yeah, I can address what you're saying, Commissioner McGuire.
Yeah.
I think that,
yeah, but
if you remember I keep going back to the NACO slide, because I kind of,
Yeah.
practically sleep thinking about it, but it's the trade-off of
Yeah.
when you have these cost pressures and this property tax, the trade-off is cutting programs. Well, for us, a lot of the programs are involved with staffing, and this next
Yeah.
round of cuts, I specifically did not do staffing reduction, so that limits really what's left to take big chunks out of, and these are places where we have not designated or assigned something to spend
Yeah.
the money on. Doesn't mean that we don't want the flexibility, doesn't mean somebody won't have a great idea in February, or even a need like food today, and we'll have to figure it out in a different way and manage it. But I don't think we are in a time of luxury
Yeah.
where we can have unassigned money that's sitting in a bank account for us to wait for the next thing, unfortunately. I just don't know if
Yeah,
we can.
and-
be.
Thank you, and I appreciate that, and I'm gonna say that. I'm not talking programs, I'm talking systems change, like, we may need to do things differently, and I don't want us to be nervous. I don't want us to be strapped to do that, I agree we have to do this, but. I'm not talking programs, I'm talking how we do our work in the big picture. How do we work with the state? We're talking about, the state should do all the, should do the program review, or should do the eligibility review. That's the kind of thing. We need to be thinking big and systematically now, and hopefully doing things different. So I just don't want us to not ever think, I don't want us to be so strapped that we can't do that. This probably needs to happen. But I'm hoping that throughout the rest of the budget, I mean, that people will not feel like we can't do systems work, so.
So looking at these two, line items together, I guess, kind of building off of Mary Jo said, is the idea that, one question I have is, will these, reductions zero out these unallocated funds? Okay, and then so the question I have is, do we see that as a one-time choice or a shift in how we fund this work on an ongoing basis? Do you see this as a chance for us to say, having kind of these unallocated funds is not the best way for us to do that systemic or innovative work? There are other ways for us that should be baked into our budget and how we do our work daily and how we staff thoughtful strategic positions, or is this something that in flusher times we'll come back and want to have these innovative or potential funds to tap into?
Yeah, I think this is one where maybe we could have used a different word in the type. I think in our mind, we thought this was an elimination, so in the 28-29 budget, it wouldn't be in the base anymore, right? Is the way I would understand it, and so, because otherwise you're just basically starting your budget already with that levy back in, you know what I mean? You'd have to make a conscious decision to want that, if that makes sense.
So, and
So
then,
taking it out of the base.
okay, and then given that, there's a part of me that when I looked through this, I thought back to some of the conversations we had about some strategic investments in staffing that were addressing long-term budget issues, that were addressing some of our systemic change, the investment in our grants position, the investment in some of our other kind of positions were specifically, so this was the how we do our work all the time rather than some special ask. And I want to make sure that I'm tracking correctly so that I'm not just making connections in my head and we're shortchanging ourselves. I mean, do you feel as if the work of these two strategic items, that these two priorities are already embedded in some ways in the investments in the way that our budget is put together as a whole outside of these line items, and that the way that the earlier question was, have we already started to embed this work into, how we do our work already?
I mean, Commissioner, I certainly think so. I mean, I think with the Residents First money, in the budget, we invested in funding staff in social services. We invested in staff in financial assistance. I mean, those are resident facing services, I think in terms of the strategic priorities, as you talk about systems change, I mean, I know that it's been hard to make this investment in the administrative directors, but I'm absolutely convinced that we are not able to get to a long range fiscal stability if we don't have some leaders working on some of the systemic challenges that we have. I mean, I'm gonna present a report to you of 6 biennial budgets of long-term budget pressures that have shown up year after year, and if we don't eventually in 2020, maybe in 2018, it was a long-term budget pressure, but when it's when 10 years later, 8 years later, that long-term budget pressure is a now budget pressure. And unfortunately for us, it's kind of hitting at like the perfect storm of other budget pressures. So I do think, if you want to look at it another way, we traded out some of these strategic priorities with some of these other investments. And we just pre-assign, we already assigned them out, and now we're saying we're giving back this unassigned allocation. Does that make sense?
I completely
Okay.
understand. That is how I saw that. I just
Okay.
wanted to bring that to light,
Yeah.
to say that instead of having this as an extra, if we have an idea fund, we already have ideas. We've already invested them in this budget. Those have already been well thought out in the way that you structured the ask to us earlier. And so I'm okay with that, knowing that that is the intention. Also with the idea that we as a collective body, if 2-3 years goes by and we realize that we are not feeling like we have the resources to be more nimble and reactive and timely, that should you feel that that something like this, maybe not this, but something like this needs to be reintroduced, that could come up in another budget cycle when we have more flexibility.
Yeah, and the last thing I'll just say, and maybe Alex, you can help me out, but know, when you think about residents first, another, you know, that exercise, we're kind of far away from September 2nd. But let's remind ourselves, how much of levy did we put in ARI, for example?
Oh,
Was it 4.5?
hold on.
Yeah,
Sorry.
I just threw out, but I
That's
mean,
not
but-
where I thought you were
yeah,
going.
but you see kind of what I'm trying to say is like, you can't look at what we, like, this is not separate from the bigger budget.
Right.
And the bigger budget already made some pretty significant levy investments. And many of them align up, had they been just the early seeds of a project, they would have been the types of systems change work that you would have invested out of this pocket of
Right.
money.
Right.
And so we're talking multi-millions when it comes.
$3 million,
3 million.
3.72% on the levy.
Right.
So it just, you can't disconnect, you know, the
Yes.
previous
Mhm.
budget, that's kind of the base of this addenda, you know? So-
And thank you for that. That's
Yeah.
exactly what in my long-winded way, that's where I was trying to get at, to say, this is not an abandonment of the county to these priorities in any way.
No.
Um,
The one last thing I would like to say, though, is that the money that we've invested in Residents First in the program and in the projects and initiatives that have come out of it, that work has been embedded, to your point, into the departments and the work that they do there. And they will have lasting effects on how we do our work going forward, even now.
And just one more last comment, and we should continue to hold ourselves accountable to those.
Yes.
To that mission.
I just like to say.
Go ahead, Manny, go.
Thank you. Just one more thing, because this has been a mantra of mine for the last 5 years, whatever. Is that we want to make sure that that we still have capacity to look at the way we do things. I know we were trying to embed it in, you know, and we used to hear, I'm too busy to look at anything new. I'm just doing what I'm doing and I'm too busy. And so we've brought that before, you know, I've brought it before to the county manager and previous county managers, saying we can't be too busy to do things better. And so I just want to be, just help me that we're not gonna be there without, I mean, we've added some more people. We've got people not at breakneck capacity. We've hopefully added enough people that people are able to say, you know, this could be done better. So I just want to make sure we're in a place where we can continue to do continuous improvement. Otherwise, it's hard for me to, you know, to support budgets that aren't getting us, that aren't at that point.
We hear you.
Thank you.
Kelly?
I kind of want to go off of what you said, Mary Jo, just because I understand this. I understand we asked you to make big cuts. I understand this cut. I understand. And thank you, Commissioner Jevon Singh, for bringing that point on, that it's a part of the bigger budget that we've already like invested in the work that we're doing. But I have a few hesitations. I'm just worried with everything that's happening at the federal government, with MAFPA coming down, with, you know, these more requirements that they're putting on for SNAP. I just feel like it's more work that is being pushed onto the counties, and we don't have that in our current budget. And this is one area that allows us to move quickly, like you did with the ad hoc work, right? Like, I am a little worried that we are going to put ourselves in further risk later on.
Sorry.
So I was just asking the CFO, you know, $1.5 million is about 0.4,
Like almost half a percent.
half a percent on the levy.
On the levy.
And it's just really your trade-offs. So
Sorry, Mr. Chair, Commissioner, I want to remind the board that we do have contingency funds.
Right.
These are not contingency funds. We keep contingency funds for that purpose specifically. I also, as your CFO, will always advise you not to budget and tax your residents before we know what's going to happen. That's why you have people like me and the team and other people to be ready with the contingency and have thought through many of these things of like, a lot of the estimates you've asked, is it conservative? Yes, it's conservative. There's also things you do mid-year where you can say like, oh, we're gonna implement things mid-year to try and slow down because we have different information at that time, right? And so there's lots of levers we can pull based on the federal government. This funding from my CFO perspective, which I'm not sure you asked for, but I'll go ahead and give it, is funding that was really related to strategic priorities that the county was focused on over a number of years. And as DCM Francois has said, has now really embedded itself within the work that we do every day. It was specific to make sure those strategic priorities got the attention and work that needed to be done. I do believe we're in a different place now as a county and our priorities are different. If you wanted to increase the contingency fund because our risk is greater, that is something that I would love to talk through, but I think that's an amount we've had for a long time and we typically do not use it. Not close to all of it. So that's where I would go first.
Thank you, that's helpful. I don't want us to, though, also get in the habit of just, we've got a contingency fund, it's okay for over budget, I don't.
Oh, sorry, Mr. Chair, Commissioner, I hope I did not imply that. That is for things that we cannot anticipate today. And it is a responsible choice as the county board to have that. That is things that happen, like you'll see a proposal for that coming through for, the work that the sheriff's office had to do in June related to the murder of Melissa Portman. So that's the kind of thing, no one could have anticipated that. We could have never staffed or thought of that. Other times we've had to use that funding was for the George Floyd situation, the federal hearing, so things you can't anticipate. A federal change mid-year that impacted the counties would be something we can't anticipate right now, that we'd have to think about.
Thank you.
Let me just add that the reason we're doing this is to lower the levy. So our communities, especially our low income communities, don't feel the huge impact. We have plenty of time moving forward. The money in the bank is the money in the bank. How it's labeled and what box we put it into, you manage that. You're in control of that. And we don't need to have money sit idle right now. If a year down the road, anybody comes up with the best idea in the world, we could rearrange the budget, right?
Great point, thank you.
Thank you for that reminder.
Yeah.
Right, that we know that the levy is too high at this point, and we're trying to eliminate that. But I think even more important is that, I think that I've heard a really thoughtful consideration and plan, especially around resident first. That has been embedded. We're not where we were in 2018. We have made that progress from where we were to where we are today. And that is embedded throughout the work that we do around resident first. And so, I think we're in a good place.
I do too.
John?
Ready to move on? Okay.
Oh, I'm ready to move.
Okay.
All right, the next one, Karen, if you wanna stay up here, I think you're in her 16, but, Alex, do you wanna talk about 15?
Sure, Mr. Chair, Commissioners, 15 is actually just bad timing. So we planned the budget, we had put in $100,000 to really look at our indirect cost allocation. We do need to do that. It was one-time money. We need to do that, but we don't need to do it till we get the new ERP system because we just have to redo it then. And so we're just gonna delay that and either try and find the money in 27 or come back with it in our 28 budget. So it's a one-time reduction, but also not gonna happen in 26.
Hi. Sure. I just want to say, I think this is great because as a nerd who asked you about this during the budget hearing and our indirect whatever, the idea also of just bandwidth, you all have enough on your plates right now. So the idea of doing this well when we have more breathing space makes sense to me.
All right, so number 16 is, so it is, the word reduced is a little bit misleading here because we actually are putting additional funds into the low income indigent burial and cremation services. That's part of financial assistance. Why it's called reduced is we had made an additional investment in the budget that I presented to you on September 2nd of $450,000. So we were trying to increase the funds that were in that fund. What this reduction does is just slow down that increase a little bit. So rather than going up the full 450, we would just go up 200 in the first year, and then we would go up the full 450 in the second year. So Karen can answer more detailed questions about the program, but that's actually what's happening financially there. So it's just a smaller cut on 26, but it was actually even with the cut, we are increasing the program by $250,000.
Go ahead.
I would just say, maybe we say lower the increase.
Yeah, that's.
I mean,
that's
you just said it, but maybe we
Yeah.
just write
Yeah.
that in there.
Could I
because
ask
That's
you
good for the.
A question, Alex, Does this fund go down to zero every year?
Yes.
Does the burial fund go down to zero every year?
It does?
Yeah, I'm thinking, it's in the general fund, so I'd say yes,
Mhm.
that money doesn't go from year to year.
I understand that. Is it used
Is it used
100%?
Oh, sorry, Mr. Chair, Commissioners, I would have to defer to, DCM.
Well, Terry-
Oh, sorry. I'm confused because I was covering that area for a little bit, I'm sorry.
And that is something that I'm gonna actually have to get back to you on. I can, reach out to, Director Ali and get that for you before, I leave, but.
But that's fine. Can you
Oh,
get it back?
sorry, Mr. Chair, Commissioners, I have real time.
Oh,
information
every
here
year.
saying,
Oh,
yes,
every
we-
year.
we go
I just
over
got
every
that
year.
too.
We spend all of the money every year.
Every year, so. The only reason is, and I wanna let the ball is I met with a couple of funeral directors and they were actually gonna cut off people.
Mhm.
Because the rates, we needed to raise the rates, okay? So as the rates go up, then the money goes up quicker. And so that was an issue because it's usually low income people that can't meet this rate. Kelly,
I think we discussed this in our one-on-one link. Is this an opportunity to maybe put, some of this cost into the opioid settlement? Because if their death relates to an opioid overdose or opioid related?
I mean, certainly we could consider it. I was cautious not to put so much pressure onto the opioid funds from all these different spots in
Mhm.
26, but it certainly could be a strategy for 27 once we get an opioid ban.
Right.
If that makes sense.
Yeah.
So maybe we could sustain the 200 savings for both years potentially that way.
Okay.
Yeah.
One thing that I'm learning here is that we have been, working with a shortfall. But I would assume that's why we decided to increase the funding. But as the county manager said, this is only slowing the increase. We still are going to be, increasing the amount of funds that we get.
my concern is that as constituents might be calling everybody around the table here, when they can't bury their family member.
They're gonna be calling us on a lot of these.
Well,
Yeah.
that's true,
Yeah.
that's true. I'm just bringing that up down the road. I mean, it's a tough one because I did meet with these folks and they were actually gonna cut people off, and as they say, when they're even gonna deal with the counties.
The shortfall that they've been experiencing is about 200,000. So.
Okay, so this should get us there.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right, I can take number 17 as well here. So this is from the human resource budget. As part of the budget that I introduced in, on September 2nd, we gave human resources for FTE. Two of the FTE were to, support the paid family medical leave program, which we still will need. As you learned about the program, it's gonna be quite complicated. However, we do not need the funds that were allocated to the human resource budget. We had a separate spot in the budget that we were holding funds for the paid family medical leave program. And because of the cost that MetLife came in at, we actually have some additional funds in that line to be able to cover the employees, if that makes sense. So it's still general levy that will cover the employees, but we don't need it. We don't need this increase as part of the human resource budget. So that's a couple of the positions. The third position, so this is three positions in 26 that won't be coming out of the human resource budget that were added to their budget. The third one was a DIOD, diversity, inclusion, organizational development staff. They are rethinking how they are setting up that department. And so as I've met with the new CHRO, she is actually doing a lot of recalibrating around just what the different teams are and what their job functions are, and thinking thoughtfully before she hires new people. So rather than making this a direct cut, we're just slowing things down essentially. She's still gonna get the majority of her FTEs after a new conversation with the board and some workshops in 2027. But I needed to give her some time to do some reevaluating of the department. So what this does, it'll basically cut 3 FTEs, the cost with being 450,000 out of the human resource budget. We'll still be hiring the 2 paid family medical leave, but they'll be coming out of a different source, and then they won't be hiring one of the other 4. And they'll just be making 1 new hire instead of 4, if that makes sense. It's a little complicated, but hopefully I explained it okay. Yeah. Yep, so just squeezing wherever we can. All right, and then, this is a area that Karen oversees as well, so I'm gonna let her, do 18.
Okay.
Yeah.
So this funding actually comes out of the information technology portfolio. We don't anticipate any significant changes to outcomes for residents or staff. The 300,000 reduction represents a modest portion of the $4.5 million information technology.
Okay, I found this on the web.
Portfolio.
Don't
They're listening, you know?
They're
this is where-
listening.
Yeah, I know, like.
Essential systems and services will continue to operate normally. And high impact technology projects will remain prioritized. I also want to point out that we do not expect any cybersecurity, regulatory, or compliance risks as a result of this reduction. The TGC, or the Technology Governance Committee, will ensure that funding continues for projects essential to system security and compliance. These areas remain top priorities despite the budget adjustment.
I just have one quick question, which is just remind me, where does some of our technology investments fall into the potential for bonding? Are there ever any times when these kinds of things can fall into that, and just, is that another tool that we're trying to reimagine as we go forward?
Yes, Mr. Chair, Commissioners, great question. We're doing bonding for the ERP, as you know. We also bonded previously for some of our wireless work across the kind of the Wi-Fi work across the county. We do use that tool if it is something that will last us, 10 to 20 years. So yes, and we will probably look to that more once the ERP, I think as Deputy County Manager Francois said, the ERP is going to take up a lot of time and energy over the next couple of years. And so these are smaller, really important department level projects. And this is a way to fund those that wouldn't make a lot of sense for bonding.
Thank you.
So Karen, this does not involve staffing.
Mr. Chair, no, it does not.
Good. All right, I'm gonna cover 19, and this is a 2027 impact, but I wanted to include it because, again, this was another one of those that you guys brought up at the budget hearing. I wanted to just make sure you saw that we heard you. As we've operationalized ARI, when it started out as a ARPA funded project, it was such a new initiative. We had, I believe, 4 planners that kind of kicked off the project. As we've now started to operationalize it and move it off of the ARPA funds in 27 and move it into levy funds, there's less of that kind of coordinating and planning that is necessary, and we're gonna Deputy County Manager Reyes is gonna reduce some of the planning support in 27. So in terms of number 20, let me give you a little background. I know Karen's here as well as Dr. Kruger as well. So I do have a quick adjustment to this number. After some refinement of FTEs and understanding the costs, this reduction would save $279,000, not the 325 that is listed on there. So the service center at Metro Square is staffed with 3.5 FTEs of sheriff deputy support. They are there from 7:30 to 5 o'clock with some overlapping shifts. We have some roles of 3 deputies and a sergeant that oversee the work there. In addition, the second floor also has information and security that we contract, the property management contracts, and they're actually there wider hours. They're there from 6 a.m. to 8 p.m. and we do some building rounds as well. On the first floor, near corrections, there's also contracted security staff as well. So just wanted you to kind of know the layers of security. In addition to the physical people that do security in the service centers, we also have camera coverage as well as audible monitoring to capture any escalating behavior. Both of those cameras are monitored by the sheriff's office as well as the contracted security. Phones in the service center have deputy alert buttons that are located at every staff workplace and in the meeting rooms. And so, in addition, there's also a service center safety committee that, that is a partnership between the labor union and also our, service center leadership to talk about safety issues and concerns. And then lastly, we also provide, annual de-escalation training, and we're actually gonna be piloting some new active threat training too. So wanna just present security as multifaceted at Metro Square at the service center. It's not just one thing, it's a combination of a lot of things. This cut is to reduce that 3.5 FTE down to 2 FTE of coverage. And so it'll shrink up a bit of the coverage over the course of the day. I believe Dr. Kruger explained it could be maybe 8:30 to 4. So we're maybe not covering the first half hour that's open or the last half hour that it's before it closes. However, from our incidents, we know that the vast majority of the calls happen between 10 and 2. And so there's some data informed things as well. So happy to take questions. It's a complicated, because it's connected to the Skyway. You might have more questions, but I wanted to just lay out the general framework of the cut.
But no, I appreciate you walking us through this. Have we consulted with any of the staff at the service center, specifically the leadership around this particular proposal?
So, this proposal was, part of the 5% exercise that was done. I do not believe it was introduced to any of the staff, but it certainly, we recognize there's a safety committee that is ongoing talking about safety concerns at Metro Square, if that makes sense. So, like we have, we basically have data on the incidents.
Yeah.
And I will say that people's perception of safety is different based on a lot of things. Some people find uniform officers to, and this could be staff and residents, I've heard it both ways. Some people would find one thing that makes somebody feel safe, other people actually feels that those same things make them feel less safe. So I just wanted to make sure that it was clear that there's varying opinions when you ask people those questions.
Also,
I don't care, do you have anything more to add to that?
Just that, risk management has done an assessment of safety. In the service centers, including the downtown service center. We're awaiting the documentation to come from them. But they, determined that there, number one, wasn't a need for, security in, Maplewood, in the service center in Maplewood Mall, or in Roseville. And I do believe that they support this effort to reduce from the 3.5 FTE to 2, based on the incidents that have occurred. I think also Director Kruger, can speak to incidents in the ecosystem of our buildings within the county, and to show that the amount of incidents that happen in the downtown service center or in all of the service centers is much smaller than what we're seeing in the totality of the ecosystem.
gotcha. And so when looking at Maplewood and Roseville, are they getting the same quantity of incidents that we may be getting at the downtown service center?
No, they're
Okay.
not.
Okay.
But I also, Commissioner, would stress that the downtown service center is unique. It is connected to the Skyway. A fair amount of the incidents have to do with other things that are in and around near the building of Metro Square. And pre-service center, there was not a sheriff presence at Metro Square. So it could be that because the sheriffs are there, they're responding to calls that are adjacent to the proximity of the service center, but had there not been a service center there, they would be calling St. Paul Police or other resources, right? So it's kind of a little bit, it's a unique place
Mhm.
that is connected to the public realm, more so than than the libraries, I will say.
You know, I'm just thinking, we need to, we've been talking, especially with the sheriff's, budget and so forth. We need to do a staffing of the jail, a staffing study, right? Does it make sense, and I'm only asking the question, is it even possible to couple a study of staffing and security under one umbrella? Is that possible, or is it too distinct?
Yeah, I think, yes, I think we can include that. It's part of the whole staffing study. Chair, commissioners, that's something definitely we can consider in the overall staffing study.
Yeah, and let me tell you what I'm thinking. I'm thinking while we have one environment now, will the environment change a year from now as things get more difficult for people? I don't know. I'm just, but it'd be good to know what is required, what we need, and to work from that baseline, right? In case we need to move it. So I'm just wondering, and we do have to start looking at the jail in terms of the budget impacts.
I just have a question for, Deputy Manager Joanna Burke as well, because we. The only reason the only reason I specifically is because when we were able to, as a board, take a tour of the service center in the previously named Metro Square. We had a conversation about how the physical space that was created was intentionally created to de-escalate, meaning like having been in like service centers in the past, where you're in bad fluorescent lighting, in a screechy metal chair, and now when you walk into our new space, you could be walking into any pediatric dental waiting. I mean, it has a very elevated feel, and there's space for people to spread out. I mean, there's a lot of just how the physical space is laid out is already sets people up for success in that space. We talked about during their tour, some of the de-escalation training, some of the other things. And yet there were still some concerns about making sure that they were a certain level staff that was there that could handle big feelings that individuals come into that space with. There was a sense of this is a very quiet day, meaning other days are not as quiet. I don't want to think about this particular question as just a financial or an initiative or a workflow or a pacing of change. I want to think about the safety and well-being of our staff and our residents. I don't want to presume there's any more greater danger there than there is in our other sites, but given the conversation, is there anybody at this table who wants to pull the brakes and said, I would feel awful if we let this go through without me saying something at this table? I'm just curious I pulled you back because you were in the tour standing next to me, so I thought, you were part of that conversation. I'm just curious, is there any part of this that we're just not filling in the details?
I think that's a very good question, but I'm guessing it was Director Kruger you were talking to?
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, it's
I'm
okay.
sorry, please, yeah.
Was it
Yes,
okay?
it was,
Okay.
sorry.
No, this is.
Yes.
Yes,
My apologies, my apologies, yes, and I'll just say that these Tuesdays, we just go from one meeting to the other, you all is so kind.
No, I appreciate that.
Sorry.
Thank you, Commissioner. No, I think you make a good point, right? We were intentional in the design and the amount of space that went into this downtown service plan. It does present a whole different, if you will, ambiance than any other one. To your point, obviously, if this were purely about financial, I might have come forward and said, no law enforcement. I felt this is a measured step and really, in my mind, brings us to a little bit more of an equitable position in that we do not have law enforcement at other county service buildings outside of those such as this one that has courts. And the courts facilities have deputies present. Our libraries don't have any law enforcement. Our clinic, 555 clinic does have information security, third party, but not law enforcement. When I look at the incidents that occur across the board in terms of libraries, the clinic, we've had issue or two arise at our ice arenas, right? This felt like a bit more of an equitable approach and not making assumptions ahead of time about who's coming into any of our buildings and or what that interaction might look like. Yet, we do have staff trained, de-escalation training. We'll continue to, we'll do more of it. We have managers, supervisors on site present who can intervene if something gets a little bit more
Yes.
escalated. And yet, if something goes beyond
She's
that,
taking a break.
we will still have deputies present for the vast majority of the time the service center is open. So I hope that answers it.
Yes, and again, my apologies for interjecting different heads of different things, but yeah, I mean, I think that that's really key to know, and I to the county manager's point earlier, you know, having law enforcement in a space sets a tone one way or the other, depending on who you are, your experiences, and that in and of itself, you know, is either a deterrent or an invitation, so to speak. So I appreciate that the discussion of other buildings and how we use them and don't use them.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I appreciate this conversation, because yes, it's not just about finances, and it's a balancing of safety and try to be as proactive and as we can. I'm just curious, do we, when and if there is an incident in either Maplewood or Roseville, we call the Maplewood Police or the Roseville Police, right? We don't call the sheriff, right? So law enforcement does it, but when they're at the Metro Square Center, we don't call St. Paul Police, the sheriffs are there, so that's why the sheriffs respond. Otherwise, it would be the St. Paul Police,
Yeah. Correct, Commissioner.
just
McGuire.
confirming, yeah,
You're in
that
the
our local
prime-
police are actually addressing. Hopefully, there aren't a lot of issues. I mean, we don't see a lot of issues, but you know, it's a local impact on it.
Well, that's why I'm asking the question, is there value to do a security study along with the staffing, so we know what we we should be doing and not doing, because if I go by what you just told me, Jay, we should eliminate all four.
Commissioner Ortega, I'll go back to, we are working very closely with risk management and the
I
new safety
get it.
officer, and I think we'll, when
So,
they
so I go
complete
back
their
to my
review,
question,
we'll
is
see.
there any value to doing a security study of all our facilities?
Is that what they're doing? Are they doing a security evaluation with risk management?
Yes,
Okay,
for the service centers.
okay.
Yeah.
And I'm talking about all of our
I see, yeah,
facilities, I don't know what's out of whack and polish.
Yeah.
Yeah,
we
we
can take-
Commissioner,
we can take
but I
that.
will add to that, that we property management are only a year into ourselves having a physical security manager. Who is, one of the things he is doing is putting together for us a matrix and an evaluation, so it is in essence on the way. From
So in
security,
essence, that's what
yes.
I'm asking for,
Yes.
and that's of all our facilities.
Yes.
I have a question.
Kelly, and then, I'm sorry, the other way around, Garrison, then Kelly.
Do we have any data around the number of incidents, like over the last, let's say, 3 to 5 years at this particular service center? And if we've seen increases, if it's stayed flat, if it's decreased, like, do we have that information?
Yes, Commissioner McMurtry, we do. Actually probably have statistics going a couple different ways, but through the sheriff's deputies that are at the service center now and have been at the service center in its, prior iterations, they do keep the statistics. This year at Metro Square, we saw a bit of an uptick in kind of the August and September timeframe, which, if you might remember, we had quite an uptick in traffic in the building and wait times. Happy to say that through the work of AHOD, we have seen both the numbers of people and incident levels kind of go back down again. The level I would have to look back at prior years' data. So this is more anecdotal right now, is less than we had years ago when we were after this project.
So that kind of couples another question I had, which is around, you know, the times of year where the level of incidents or just, yeah, the number of incidents maybe ebb and flows, like, is there a certain part of the year where we kind of expect to see maybe more incidents to occur versus others? And is there a way to maneuver this so that maybe at that particular time we focus on having more versus the rest of the year where we reduce it to two?
Another good question, Commissioner McMurtry, and I'd have to look at the data a little bit closer to see if there are seasonal cycles.
Yeah.
We do know there are more people generally coming in the first days of the month than later. But seasonally, I'd have to look at the data a little bit.
Just something I would say for us to go back and think through is if there's more of a seasonal approach, so we can ensure that we're having the extra support there when we need it versus times when we know we're gonna be potentially expecting less folks.
Okay, so to kind of go off of his question, do we also know too, and maybe you said this and I just was paying attention to something else, but do we know if it's more of our deputies that are being used for incidents happening in the skyway and outside of the building rather than incidents that are happening within our building and our space? So is it's more or less like, oh, there's a sheriff that's at, there's a deputy that's there, so if there's any commotion that comes down the skyway, they'll take care of it for us.
Yes, good question, Commissioner Miller. For 2025, roughly a third of the incidents that the deputies responded to were related to things outside the service center. And
Okay.
about 2/3 are in. But I would just add that even in the service center, some of those are related specifically to a staff person being uncomfortable, their choice of what is
What their comfort
uncomfortable,
level is.
and requesting that a deputy be present or be close to the workstation that they're meeting with the client. And that's fine, that's why they're there, but in essence, is that an incident?
Right. So then my next question goes to staffing on this, because if we're reducing, then we are cutting staff then essentially, because I thought earlier we mentioned that we've not done any staffing cuts. So is this a elimination of staffing if we're reducing them from here, or are they gonna be incorporated somewhere else in the sheriff's department's budget and at a different location? I just wanna.
I would guess it's the latter, the
It's gonna,
reallocation.
it'll be a reallocation. Okay, but we're not certain. Are you aware, Kyle? Is that gonna be a reallocation or is that gonna be a?
If these positions are, Mr. Chair, Commissioners, if these positions should be eliminated, we would reduce two FTEs that are complement and zero expenses, zero revenue. So it would result in a decrease to our authorized complement.
Okay.
And at that location, or just, and then would they be reassigned
The
somewhere
bodies could fill vacant positions that.
within the
elsewhere
sheriff's
that are
department?
complement.
So they could,
Yeah.
it would zero it out within that facility, but you would maybe, the chances that they'd be incorporated into a vacant position at the sheriff's, what would that chances be?
Depends on our hiring cycle and
Yeah.
where we're at, but.
That's up to the sheriff office to take care of that, right?
Yes.
To figure that out.
Well, and HR,
NHL.
or is it just you guys?
It's mostly us.
Oh, okay, well, good.
I think they'll be fine. Good, we good?
Are we done? We
Well,
go
one
that
more.
one? Okay, yeah.
Are we good with the questions on 20? All right, the last one, I had, offered to the sheriff for $300,000 to do community engagement in partnership with our Office of Safety and Justice and our Racial Health Equity Administrator as a way to try to build more partnership and, hopefully, show up in community more as one Ramsey County. Because those are new funds and have been unassigned as well. I think we can still try to do some of that with $100,000 and take a $200,000 reduction.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I have a question, which is, first of all, I just wanted to do a shout out, to Commissioner Zhang's earlier comment, this morning that we had a chance to meet with, some of the team from the sheriff's department, and one of the big questions I had was around community outreach. And mostly as a way of saying, they do a wonderful job at every level throughout their department of engaging with community in a way that's very meaningful. And when I asked why, it was the idea of leadership from the top, expectation over a long period of time of how we do business. And so one of the questions that I have is, what would originally when the original $300,000 allocation was there, I wasn't sure how those dollars would be different than the ongoing work that the sheriff's office does. And so that clarification would be helpful, as to know what exactly it is that we would be giving up here.
I think a lot of their work tends to be grant funded when it comes to some of the community engagement work, and again, this was just more of a carrot versus a stick approach to just sort of work in close partnership. I know Veronica is the key racial health equity administrator there, trying to build a collaborative work plan with the outreach folks, so that, for example, that the mental health van would show up with the sheriff, that there would be partnerships with our other departments. And so it wasn't the sheriff showing up as Ramsey County Sheriff alone, but that through the shared funding, there would be a more of a merging, and over time, maybe building the relationship muscle, so that, some of these things that they're already doing would naturally then become more one Ramsey County. So I don't know, Gloria, if you have any more to add there, but.
No, Veronica, who's here, who can speak more on the details of the plan, but she has been working closely with the sheriff's department to develop a series of youth engagement, really focusing on youth. And so it sounds like a great plan, and I think that's something that we can all support. I don't know, Veronica, if you can, if you have anything specific that you want to add, no? Okay, yeah, it's all centering around youth, so really important.
Well, I guess the question I have is that, I love the idea of the spirit of the one Ramsey County, but is it only through funds that can happen, or can it become through the intention of how we collaborate and work together? And I don't know the answer to that. So that's why I thank you, Veronica, for joining us. I don't want to make any assumptions, because these could mean all sorts of things.
Yeah, so this year, I think this is the first year you all were granted community engagement funds. So this year, we use community engagement funds just to do that, right? And so there was a series of engagement events that the other county departments specifically partnered with the sheriff's office in. So we had FAS out there, we had social services out there to really work with the young folks. And what we found out was that, like, the staff really enjoyed the engagement with the young folks that were a part of the different programs through the sheriff's office. And so we took that idea, and that's how we decided that, like, the youth engagement portion of the work that they do that's thinking about the next couple years and how hard it's going to be. Like, that's where we need to focus in.
So I did flesh that out just a little bit more for me, because I'm feeling that this is something of worth to the county and the community. I'm just not grasping why we need additional dollars for us all to play in the sandbox together. That creates some tissue there for me to understand.
Yep, so we're talking about programs that a lot of times don't have funding attached to it. So they're really going out and providing these services everywhere from literacy services, mentorship.
It's a youth experience.
Athletic. And then, thinking about what was the career?
Youth
Explorers, right? The Youth Explorers program. And so these are programs that, they deemed important. They're important programs, right? Keeping kids off the streets, kids who, for better or worse, people have sort of identified as, like, they're not going to be in traditional programming. And so there's a cost to it.
And I think the
So-
value of having sheriff's deputies out there engaging with young people and building that trust and relationships, right? They will be doing cross collaboration with the Youth Justice Transformation team and other teams across the county. But this specific funding component really allows the time for deputies to come out and do spend funds on, you know, not only the time, but food, resources, that they bring out into the community. And so, you know, that's why the additional funds.
So so again, I can get back down to, so is cutting these funds, cutting the program, or just cutting how many different groups from around the county are working together on, that's what I wanted, yeah,
Gotcha.
yeah.
I mean, these funds had never been there, right? So this gives us an opportunity to sort of expand into what has been already happening with zero funding to add in those components.
Okay, I have my John. And Joe.
Deputy County Manager, Reyes, thank you for mentioning, how it would have been with youth justice transformation work too. We had just gotten a report today about, getting some of those funds out, and, I believe a week or two ago, 2-3 weeks ago, we already, passed an RBA about, some of those funds of the grants. Couldn't that be used for this type of initiative instead?
Yeah, definitely. Those, that funding source are going to direct organizations that can partner with, the sheriff's department. So, definitely, we need to work more towards bringing those funding, opportunities and organizations who are gonna get those funds to help in that manner. But, those funds that we talked about today are not going towards the sheriff's department and their deputies to be out in community. It's a different subset of organizations, the participatory defense, one, it's the youth and family services. And it's a procurement process that organizations will be able to apply for.
Okay, but for the one where, I'm forgetting which organization it is again, but then I thought that it was going to them so that it'd be flexible for them to like give it out. And how I'm thinking about this is seeing this and hearing about how the sheriff has been doing the engagement is, in supporting and engaging in with youth who hasn't been a fit for traditional organizations, right? So that's where I see the value.
Right.
So couldn't they be a partner in that with and use
Definitely.
those funds instead of like going on the levy?
You know what's
Yeah,
strange to
so
me is that the sheriff is here and can that sheriff, I don't understand why the sheriff office is not talking about what the sheriff is gonna do.
Because these
I'm
were,
just saying.
yeah,
It's just
definitely bring them up here.
Yeah, I think it's.
Is there?
Did that
But
answer
no,
your
no,
question?
that didn't answer my question.
I know, but.
You make room,
it's
Kyle.
just reduced to the county sheriff office being engaged.
No, we're just reducing the amount we're gonna give them.
Okay, finish answering my insurance question.
Yeah.
So yes, so some of those funds that we are disseminating are going to different initiatives and departments throughout the county as well. And at the sheriff's department, it was not one of them. But they could work with the organizations that we're gonna fund or work with the different departments who are gonna get those funds.
Okay,
Can I just ask a quick question?
wait a minute.
Oh.
Are you done?
Oh, yeah, under sheriff, you can respond to if worries.
What do you do with community?
So you can, yeah, then I'll try and catch up here.
So to this. Commissioner. So this was really something when, during the budget presentation, when it was originally announced about the 300,000 allocation, right? There was some questions on how that money was gonna be spent. And so this has been the last couple weeks. So that's the reason, like the RFP went out, that went out, and then we sat down to talk about like what is actually happening, what are these programs, let's get them on paper. And like work through what other resources are needed to make sure that these are functioning programs. So that's the disconnection between the RFP process and that extra money. I do think, to your point though, once that process is over and we sort of get the list of community organizations that are awarded that piece, we should look at where those partnerships are in community and who we can partner with. Yes.
Just to respond back, now it's youth prize. We awarded $1.3 million just to youth prize. So that's, I'm like, couldn't that be a place where we work with youth prize on getting these dollars or specifically to that program together?
And that contract was meant for other organizations doing this work.
Wasn't that for the individual service funds? though?
It was
For
for the
infant-
individual
For families
services,
and
yeah.
for kids. I don't think that's going to organizations,
It was not, well,
right?
yes, it is the ISF funds, but it is for organizations who
Okay.
serve young people who need additional services. It's not specifically for a department to do youth engagement work, if that makes sense. It is designated to fund youth and families who are struggling. It's not for specific departments, if that makes sense. For that youth prize.
Right, I have Kelly.
Mine kind of followed up with what Commissioner Jean, your clarification, because I guess I was, now that you explained that, but I guess I kind of have a follow-up question on that is the work that the sheriff's office does with community engagement also does serve families, so, right? Like, they're not just gonna say, oh, well, your family can't eat tonight, so I'm only gonna take the kid out, right? Like, they're serving the family in a whole way, so I'm curious to see, and I would encourage more communication and more collaboration with the sheriff's office to help them in the work that they're doing through dollars that we have, and if that this RFP is an opportunity to do that, is that once you look at it and say, well, the sheriff's office might need X amount of dollars, we're gonna reduce that from our community organizations, because it feels like we should take care of the house before first in the work that they're doing in support of that work. I just, that's kind of, but thank you for answering that about the youth prize dollars as well.
Mary Jo and Rena.
Okay. So I think we all love community engagement and we all want it to happen. And I think the sheriff's office is doing a lot of it. We fund, I mean, if I got the sheriff's budget in front of me, you're doing a lot of it. So this money is going to pay the sheriff to do more community engagement with us. Is it to coordinate with us on this, which I believe we should be doing without extra dollars? Shouldn't we just be coordinating on all these programs already? So I'm not quite sure why we, I know this was maybe an incentive, it was sort of presented so we would work together, and I just think we should be working together, and we're putting in a lot of resources. So then I think, well, then let's both put in our resources, because we have community engagement over here, you have community engagement, let's work together, but I guess I'm unclear why we need these extra dollars to do that, because we all are doing it over here, but we need to be doing it together, which I think we all agree on.
Right,
So-
right. And so I think, historically, the county launched community engagement funding through an application process at the service team level. Historically, that funding didn't make its way to us. It started, at least in this year in 2025, with your assistance, Veronica, working with Daryl Gillette and our staff to kind of ramp up, submit proposals. You approve them. That funding resides at the service team level with the DCM. And so like we were doing this much before, then this year we were doing this much. Next year we can do even greater things with the support of the county and partnership with the county. And I know that without speaking for the county manager, but I know you and the sheriff had the conversation about this idea of one Ramsey County, one degree of community engagement that touches a lot of different people with financial assistance, with social services, things that we weren't necessarily part of previously, but are now. And so this funding here helps keep that presence in the community. It helps grow what we've done with very little. But positions us, I think, in connection with the county departments at the service team level. To be more out in community.
And so is this money going to the sheriff's office or no? It's just going into this pot of coordination dollars?
I believe it's gonna be going to Office
Oh,
of Justice,
okay,
yeah.
So we meet, so Veronica's met with staff, they've developed a budget, some pragmatic outcomes, attached dollar amounts to it. And that rests at the service team level, so it's not within the sheriff's office budget, it's at the service team level.
And so Commissioner, just to be clear, that's how that worked for this year. Right? And so there was a clear directive between community engagement funds and saying, if we're gonna do community engagement funds, other departments have to be involved in this
Yes.
community engagement. And they did show up for that, right? So then they had asked me, like, how do we get other departments involved? And so we've been working on this sort of like this plan around what their current community engagement looks like with other departments around the county. And so now it's like, let's focus on these programs and then continue to pull departments in to help support these young folks and their families.
Yeah, I got that. Oh, Lena.
I want to apologize for calling the sheriff in, but it's just strange to me to talk about the sheriff office and they're right here and they're not at the table. It just seemed really strange to me. So to better understand, we originally was going to give them 300K for this work, right? Because you had nothing at first, there was like no dollars. So you're pulling back 200 to say, we're gonna do 100 for a shared partnership on the work that you're doing in the community. And I think part of this is like, it's good to see the sheriff there, but it also makes people feel safe. You know, because it is the largest population that we see interacting or incidents happening is with the young people. Right, whether it's rivalry or whatever's happening out in the community happens, but with the sheriff there. Do you think by having your presence there, is there a way for you to make those connections with the young people? Is that part of like the solution of what you're trying to do?
Absolutely. I mean, it's rather, it's the wraparound piece, different terms have been used over the years. But, you know, there's a preventative piece, there's an outreach piece, there's connections to other county services. You know, Hot Dog with the Deputy is a very successful event overall. People show up to that. You know, having a boat or, soil can be a great icebreaker, but also, hey, do you need help over here? Do you need something with financial assistance? I mean, case in point, when we did the homeless unsheltered outreach and did some housing at the law enforcement center, a consistent theme there was, I haven't gotten my benefits yet, how can you help? And take the note down, pass it on. So I think, the change in county management, the change with the board, I think all that's positioning us to do even greater things in 26 and 27. This funding is a good part of that. Veronica's partnership's been awesome, Gloria as well, Ling for recognizing that value in the budget in terms of what we can do, because more often than not, in a law enforcement capacity, we're usually the first person to respond to some degree of crisis or upset. Or somebody in need of help, arrest isn't always gonna be the best option, but sometimes that referral piece is, and as we can build that knowledge base and lay that out, it's great to have the connection within the departments. With social services, human services being a large portion of what county government does in general. So to me, I think it makes perfect sense and positions us to help adults, youth, anyone who might need assistance in some way, shape, or form.
So it's a kind of like a front-end solution, something that we usually don't see happening with law enforcement and young people. It's usually thrown up to arrest them or they done something bad. So it's creating a type of difference in partnership together.
And I did ask them to like think about all of this differently, right? And so when we went into it, I was like, can we think about this more as the preventative pieces instead of you all always having to be the intervention?
And we see that with the county attorney's office too, with the youth out grants that work with the African American Leadership Council. There's there's the arrest piece and the court process, which is an option. But what about on the preventative side? And that tends to be much more successful in reducing recidivism, having better outcomes, not having the collateral consequence of a record or whatnot. So the preventative piece is, kind of what underlines all the community engagement work.
And I do understand that we are in a place in time where 300K might have all seemed good at one point.
Mhm.
Right.
But pulling back to 200K and saying, let's work with the 100K and go from there, you know.
And, Chair, Commissioners, I think with the youth prize, contract, what we can do is find if there's any opportunity there
Mhm.
to help support the work and maybe reduce the amount. That's a good point. That's something I can follow up with the board to figure out. How, if the parameters and the criteria of using those funds fit into some of the programming that we're trying to do.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you. Just one last observation, which is and a question, which is one, I think anytime we can see cross-departmental work that's upstream, that has a positive impact on community, but also has a positive impact on staff. That I see from everybody discussing this topic right now, that both the law enforcement side is understanding different referral partners, so that in the future, so for instance, if something happens like the apartment building that had a fire, like the idea of if the thought is who's going to make sure to feed those folks with greater intentional relationships across our Ramsey County enterprise, it may not be patrolmen who are doing that, but know of other social service, public health, people trusted with you who may do that work alongside you in a way that allows more patrol people to stay on patrol while still showing up and being part of community. It's in a collective way, right? In the way it's coordinated through our emergency response, right? All of those things. So, and along with just the compassion. But I also want to say, community engagement in the way that I've seen our sheriff's department do is also something for our other teams to learn. To feel more comfortable in community, to feel more on the street, in our neighborhoods, in a way of getting out of their desks and out of their offices. And so I think this is mutually beneficial in more ways than one. My question is, given that this is new money and you've been working off of this, do you believe that having the $100,000 will allow you to continue with the momentum of the work that you've been doing? We're in a times where this could zero out, right? So I'm just saying, is the 100,000 still to keep this momentum of this collective action going forward?
I would say yes. I would you as well. My partner in crime. I mean, I think it's one of those things, you know, that's better, greater than zero, you know, but we'll still put it to good use and there's always a need to do more, but again, county responsible service is the one Ramsey County piece. I think everyone takes a little bit of a hit or reduction throughout this process. This is amenable to us, I guess, if that's what you're asking.
I would say yes too, and as a person who has spent the majority of just like my working career building programs, right? I think this is a good start.
Well, and hopefully we're building partnerships, you know, it's
Yeah.
not really a program, let's show how this can be done. So sometimes you need startup dollars. This is why I think this is okay, because otherwise I say, we should just be doing this work anyway. Like, we should just be doing it. So I guess if it needs a little startup money to show that it can be done, to develop those relationships, like the sheriff is out in community a lot. It's great now that they think to invite some county, you know, departments alongside them, and great. And showing that, you know, I'm just glad that we can demonstrate that it can be done. And then I'm hoping that we just do it then. Like, we shouldn't have to have ongoing money because we already have this kind of dollars embedded in all of our work, is what I'm thinking. Not to diminish all the work you're doing. I mean, it's great work. And I know resources are important. And I feel like this is developing partnerships that should then continue on.
Okay, we're at the hour.
So I have one more slide, just to wrap us up. Can someone flip the slide on the deck? So I just want to remind, you know, the public and the board of these dates. Obviously, we had our addenda workshops today, so while we here in about a week or so, those notices of estimated tax value will go out to our community. We are planning for our truth and taxation on December 11th. And then you will approve the budget on December 16th along with an addenda. addenda.
Yeah.
Addenda, okay, I'm like, where's the, okay, so if that makes sense, you approve the levy with an addenda document that will also be in the packet then. Right, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
We are adjourned.
This was a